Now, before we get into today's episode, I hope that you have been with us over the last few weeks. Every week has been unpacking such an amazing conversation in this series, Couples Love Week, Ride or Die Season. I have been able to bring these amazing conversations that I have virtually live at my Couples Love Week event to this podcast community. And I hope that you have gleaned a nugget or two so far. In addition to that, I've been telling you about the First Wives Club, which is an amazing community. But let me tell you this. Every month, I select a wife spotlight, someone in the community to just shine a light on them and encourage them. And they share with us wife wisdoms. And I'm telling you, the wisdom that comes from the wives who are selected for the wife spotlight have been incredible. I have been picking wives since the very beginning of our journey. The First Wives Club kicked off in November of 2019, and we have had a wife spotlight every month since. We feature them, their husband, and we tell their love story, and we glean a wife wisdom that God lays it on their heart to share. So if you aren't a part of the community, it's an excellent place where you can come and grab some nuggets to help you in your wife journey. And I get asked all the time, why First Wives Club, Denise? First is not a statement of what wife number you should be, because we know there are some people who have, again, love. First is not a statement of you having a first lady position at a church, a community, or state. First is about the priority that we deserve, because oftentimes we put ourselves on the back burner and we make everything else more important. And what happens is we lose ourselves in the relationship when we do that. And so I want to honor you, the priority of you, which is why it's called the First Wives Club. The second thing that I've been talking about are my relationship superpowers. I talk about those success superpowers all the time on the podcast, but here is a chance for you to get a view to the relationship superpowers. And we have talked about 4 so far, and today is number 5. The number 5 relationship superpower is stop wanting out. Our willingness to be fully dedicated to a conviction that is reliably true and devote ourselves to it, devote ourselves to the relationship is so important. I know in my own experience, I would look at situations and evaluate my option. And as long as the option to leave and get out stayed on the table, I flirted with it. And it wasn't until around year number 5 that I made the choice and decision to remove that from my options. Yes, I have non-negotiables, but my everyday life is not a non-negotiable. It just requires compromise and sacrifice. And by removing the option of wanting out, it made me begin to truly evaluate what solutions were on the table that could help us win at love. So relationship superpower number 5 is stop wanting out. And we have an incredible couple coming to our rewind today. The Loveless are going to share from their experience. And I want you to listen. I want you to listen how they persevered and how they decided to turn off the exit sign and stick with love and do the hard work so that they could grow in love together. Let's get into it. Well, hey, it's Denise, and you'll be so glad you tuned in today. We recently celebrated Ride or Die season as a part of my signature Denise Taylor.live event, Couples Love Week. Twice a year, we go deep on love, relationship, and winning together with 5 featured couples. And recently, we talked with those ride or die couples, anchoring in on faith, love, family, commitment, and trust. Today's Rewind episode features night number 5 of that live event. You can't be a ride or die unless you have trust. A firm belief in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of one another. Growing in love requires that we grow in trust. Trust means relying on one another, being safe with one another, and having confidence as well. When you grow up together after marrying young, you discover and rediscover each other over the years. Giving into trust fully challenges our vulnerabilities as we make mistakes and simply need room to mature. Latif and Aisha have grown together and developed a bond of trust that is safe. We'll talk about their life experiences and how now their demanding schedules lean hard on trusting one another to stay in sync. We'll discover more about the power of love and their relationship success as we tap into their journey of growing together. There they are, Aisha and Latif. Awesome couple. I don't know why God gave them the name Loveless, because they love more. Okay, they love more. And so I want to welcome you. What'd you say?
Blame my ancestors.
Blame your ancestors. Blame your ancestors. They must love so much that they like tone it down, man. Tone it down.
Bring it back down.
Bring it back down. Being a little extra, just bring it on back down. But I want to welcome you guys to Life, Love, in the Pursuit of Happiness. I just am grateful that you said yes to being a part of Couples Love Week, where we can tap into your experience, your lifelong experience. You're one of those couples like us that kind of grew up together. You married young and you grew up together. And so we'll get into some of that. Now we're going deep on trust. And here's the definition that I have for trust. Firm belief in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of one another. And when we think about trust, we absolutely know that that's true. We got to be firm on our belief that we can rely on, we can count on, we can work with the strength and ability in the truth that is in the sovereignty of the relationship. And so I know you guys have a unique day in and day out life, and you lean hard on trust with each other. And so this is a great conversation to have with the two of you. So welcome. Now, it is a tradition, Latif, that we allow the man to love on their wife with their words, okay? Now, this is a chance for you to pull out all that swagger you had when you rolled up in your car and you got your boo many years ago. This is a chance for you to appreciate her. It's Valentine's weekend now, so you got to really put a big bow on this introduction. Big bow on the introduction.
Big old bow. Big red bow.
A big red bow. Okay, so, but please do us the honor and introduce your beautiful wife.
To my left is my wife of almost 20 years in October, but my friend of almost 24. She's an amazing person. She's a great mother, an awesome wife. But I think all in all, she's just a beautiful person, right? Everyone loves her. And I think it's.
Wait, where's the tissue? Hold up. Did we bring
Ain't
tissue?
no tissue in here. Ain't no tissue in here. It's a testament to, to who she is and what she's all about. And I do appreciate, having her as a partner. So this is my wife, Aisha Loveless.
Oh, that was so beautiful.
I didn't see that one come.
Very good job. I'd love to hear when husbands love on their wives with their words, because sometimes we get busy with life and we just don't settle down enough to share that beauty. And he did an awesome job. And everything you said was true. So you do know your wife, man. You know her well. All right, Aisha, do us the honor of introducing your handsome husband once you can get yourself together. You done got her all teared up over there.
Jeez. All right. So to my right is Latif Loveless, my husband, my best friend, my confidant, hardworking father, hardworking son, husband, uncle, cousin, nephew. I mean, so many lean on him for advice, for guidance, for input. Born in New York, raised in New Jersey. You know, I got the New York here right here.
Facts.
Raised in Jersey. And graduated in Augusta, Georgia. Who knew?
I'm a man of the world.
Yeah. And and he's a vet, he's a vet, not veterinarian, he's a vet. In Navy, right? Army
Right.
vet.
It's all
in military. And yeah, so that's who he is. Oh, and he is a director at his company. That's what causes him to travel, because he's a consulting company and leads the family, leads his family and his employees and his job, and just all around amazing guy. And I love you.
Thank you very much.
He flows right from that daytime to nighttime, though. He throw that flat bill on, like, what's up? And he'll bring it to you. And that is so beautiful. Thank you both. You guys are getting a lot of love in the chat. Someone said you're the best big brother. I think Tiffany said that. So she was loving on you. Just awesome.
Hey,
Awesome. So in every love relationship, love story, there seems to be this moment of, flip where it goes into a serious zone and you kind of know she's the one. So Latif, if you don't mind, kind of walk us through when you knew that you wanted to spend the rest of your life with Aisha.
So I mean, there's always been like a series of moments, right? I have a hard time maybe pinpointing one and saying like a switch flipped or anything like that. But as I kind of thought about it, the one thing that really came to mind is, I mean, and again, we were young. So we were living in New Jersey. I had my own apartment. She was still in college, and her, between college and her parents' house. And we were early in our relationship, a few months. And, for those of you who are of a certain age, we had pagers. We had pagers. So I got a page, it was just a random day, a regular day. I got a page, and something in me said, she's pregnant. Something, it was just, again, I had no way of knowing. I had no inclination before that. Like, it truly wasn't something. But whenever I got a page from her, I would have to leave my apartment and go to the convenience store behind my why are you laughing? Behind my apartment building and call her. That was just a routine. She would text, I would call. And it was generally just something that happened. But there was something about that text that innately was like, I think this is what this is about. And I don't know why. I couldn't tell you what it was. So I got dressed and I went to go to the payphone. We had payphones. And
you had a quarter, man. Did you have a quarter?
Yeah, the quarter.
I kept a roll of quarters. Right? Kept a roll of quarters. I dropped them quarters in the phone. I called her, hey, what's up? And she said, I'm pregnant. And I was like, okay, so this is what it is. Right. This is what it's going to be. Because I guess at that point, for me to kind of have that, I guess if you want to call it intuition or inclination or whatever it was, and then for it to actually happen, I was like, wow. And for me, that was kind of it was inertia after that. It just, it all just ended up happening.
Mm-hmm. And when you had that inclination, clearly you didn't say it was time for me to run, right? You must have had some sense of connection, some sense of bond, some sense of accountability and partnership, right? Like, because some men would have been like, let me ignore that page, right? Like kind of, I'm getting a page and I'm feeling this. Yeah, I ain't calling you back. So you must have still had that connection at that point, and you was okay with it. Not that it was all, like, oh, yay, but you was okay with it.
Yeah, it wasn't a sense of like demise or anything like that. It was more of, hey, let me find out. Like at that point I wanted to know. Mm-hmm. Right. I was, I guess, maybe curious at that point, but it was, let's see if this is what it is. Mm-hmm. And that's not to say if it wasn't that we still wouldn't be here today, mm-hmm. but it's, again, it started a chain of events. Yeah. That clearly, I guess, have at this point have led to this evening.
All right. That's awesome. Well, Aisha, girl. Yeah.
We're gonna have to switch this. He go first. I cannot.
Well, that was beautiful. He shared that he had the premonition and he called you back. He went immediate to the phone and he called you, and it was true. So let's see what you would add to this story. And then you could tell us a little bit about your family. What would you add?
Well, I would add that for me, the day I met him, I knew he was going to be my husband. And I tell him this all the time. Mm-hmm. I just knew that I knew. And I think I'm more spiritual in that sense. When I have more of a, that part of a connection, he's more logical and I'm more spiritual when it comes to connections and things like that. So I just knew. I knew that I knew. He was different and than any other guy that I've ever dated. And in the sense that, his everything about him. I saw his essence, mm-hmm. if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And we met at my best friend's house when we were, I always get this wrong, 19, 18?
Yeah, what something? The math doesn't matter.
Yeah, it does. Anyway, but I knew then, and it was the comedy for me. It was the laughter for me, that we'll get into that later, but it was the laughter for me. And the teeth and the handsome, look at this, it's my baby. But we have, with that, we have a 22-year-old son, and that call was 22 years ago. Mm-hmm. So he'll be 23 in May. And we have an just turned 18-year-old daughter, and we have who is actually going to University of South Carolina come this fall. She's graduating high school this year, and we have a 7-year-old everything. I don't even know what to say.
She's the prodigy. That's how you describe her. She's the prodigy.
Yeah. She is the go-getter. She's an actor. She's a gymnast. She's a cheerleader. She's a French immersion student. She is everything you could think of. That's who Journey is. So we're on a journey with Journey.
She's kind of the embodiment of someone. I think people have talent, right? But there's sometimes maybe a hesitancy to either explore it or pursue it. She's kind of the embodiment of like no fear, that if she happens to be good at it, great. But at this point in her life, she's been good at everything she's tried. Right. Yes. So, so it's like, that
means that translates to a high extracurricular budget. That means you paying more for all the rest of the stuff that she's into. Absolutely. Yeah. Because you guys make a healthy investment in her for all the right reasons, because she's good at it. And I think that's the key. But boy, does that weigh heavy on the budget for sure. Trying to get her into everything, into every place. But Journey is definitely a prodigy. She's the one that I'm for sure you guys are gonna have to relocate someday to follow her career, for sure.
May happen sooner than later.
Yeah, to follow her career. All right, thank you guys for sharing that with me. Now remind me, you've been married for 20 years, you said?
It'll be 20 years in October.
Okay, so now let me just give you a hint, Latif. 20 is a big deal. All right. So we need to mark that in some kind of way, preferably with some jewelry of some sort. So I'm just throwing that out there. Okay. That is a big deal in relationships. So congratulations to the two of you. And when you think about 20 years in your relationship, tell me what you cherish the most, Latif.
Yeah, I'll probably sound like a broken record, but it's hard to, say I cherish this thing or a thing the most. But I think overall, looking back, particularly, where we came from, and how we started, is just the growth, right? Whether it's as individuals or as a couple, as professionals, as parents, as, just in all aspects, just being able to grow, being able to evolve and have it work together, or go through it together. That's what I think, as I kind of just sit back, because this whole exercise has made me have to kind of look back, because I'm really not that person. I'm a more in the moment person. Just take the day as it comes, take each day as it comes. What's happened has happened. I'm sure that could not be a very romantic trait to have from time to time, but it has caused me to, kind of just sit back and whether it's reminiscing or just using hindsight, but just the ability to grow. Because there's times where I could say I know that I wouldn't be here without her. Right? Wherever this is, I wouldn't be here in this moment without, her companionship, her partnership, and just us being, together through it all.
That's beautiful. That is very, very beautiful. When you find that one who makes you better, who pulls out of you the better in you, who makes you go back and want to try harder, want to do more, want to show up stronger, look at the mistakes and say, I can achieve better. I can turn this around. I can, when you find that connection that inspires you that way, it transforms your life. And so when you admonish the growth, that's a good thing to look at, right? Because if y'all were still in the same place that you were 20 years ago, I'm not exactly sure that the connection did you good. But for you guys to take a minute and reflect, it does make you realize just how good life has been together for you. Not perfect, but good, because you've been able to overcome a lot and experience a lot and do a lot. And like you said, grow a lot. And so I think that that's very, very powerful. What about you, Aisha? What do you cherish the most?
Yeah. I love this question because I'm reflective when he's not. And so I cherish our friendship. I cherish, and this is what I was talking about. We'll get to the comedian part of it. I cherish being able to laugh through the hard times. And I laugh at everything, but not everything. So when, I am his biggest cheerleader, and when we're going through things or we're having an argument, he finds a way. It could be a little hanging fruit that he will cause to be the most funniest thing. And then I'm cracking up, and then we're talking about whatever issue that we may have, so going through the hard things, having the laughter and the love, getting through it, is definitely something that I cherish. I cherish him being able to show up in just about every area. Now, we wasn't showing up for each other throughout the whole 20 years now. We have to get to a point where you're comfortable with each other enough to share things with, and then allow that person to show up. So, I cherish our ability to communicate and just partner. That's my partner.
One of the things that I can relate to that is a little bit different when you love again or when you marry later, that happens when you grow up together, is you got to give one another a whole lot of grace, right? When you think of someone at 18, at 28, at 38, at 48, they are completely different people. their experiences are completely different. And if you're really trying to connect with me like you did when I was 18, you have to grow with me. You have to be willing to allow me to make mistakes. You have to be willing to allow forgiveness to be a huge factor. You have to be willing to celebrate me because I'm still finding my way. I didn't come in established. I didn't come in, having it all together. I came in with a roll of quarters in the payphone in the back, right? So it's a much different experience that you've had to grow through. And I think that it's very important to celebrate that, to get to a place of gratitude and really recognize, man, we really have had an awesome experience growing together. So I commend you guys. Latif, let me ask you this question. In your relationship, what have you had to unlearn in order to fully embrace trust?
That I'm perfectly okay by myself. Mm-hmm. Right. Like meaning in the sense of I don't necessarily seek out crowds or need to be in groups or things like that. Right. But what I've had to learn, but that has lended itself to I do everything myself. Mm-hmm. Right. I've had to unlearn, and I'm still unlearning that I don't have to do it all myself. Mm-hmm. Right. Even if there's something that I'm going through, and more importantly, if there's something that we're going through or that will affect the both of us, mm-hmm. that I don't have to either try to remedy it or fix it or solve it alone. Mm-hmm. That I need to be able to lean on her, mm-hmm. right? And or even say, all right, I need some help.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. Like, yeah, I thought I could do it, but mm-hmm. yeah, that's not working. So and do it proactively. Mm-hmm. Right. Not on the back end.
Reflex.
Not trying to do it and then coming back saying, okay, this is about to happen. Let's work on it together. Or this is, the season or whatever the situation is. Eliciting, whether it's advice or support or just grabbing her by the hand and pulling her with me, right? That's what I've had to unlearn. And I still have to talk myself out of those things mm-hmm. sometimes, just because it's a natural tendency of mine.
I can relate to that. It's almost a little funny when you're so self-sufficient, and I too can just thrive by myself. It's interesting because when people see me out and about, they're expecting me to be like very conversational, and I'm quite the introvert, where I'm pretty good, being by myself and just kind of sitting alone and those kind of things. And so you do become very self-sufficient and in figuring out how to make room for your mate to be a part of you, to be a part of your experience, and being willing to say, yeah, I could do all the steps, but let me leave some steps undone so that they kind of have a part in it. Yeah, I could figure all of it out. Is a very intentional thing for me too, right? Because I am one of those that can just get it done as well and really move on to the next thing. And you may not even known it was an issue, right? Because like I have moved on past it and been able to address it. And so I can relate to what you're saying, mainly because I feel it's important when you're trying to develop your intimacy, your connectivity with one another. What you think is okay for you just to go on and take care of, they saw as an opportunity to connect. And I hear that a lot from Chuck, especially when he's like, well, can I pick up something for you? Can I, and I'm like, no, but he's trying to connect, right? And so making room to allow for that is important to stimulate that connectivity. What about you, Aisha? What have you had to potentially unlearn in order to fully trust?
Well, let me go back a little bit with his comment with making his own decisions. It's good. That works when you make good decisions, though, babe. Yeah, that's when that works. But anyway, I trust your decisions now.
Yeah, it was them bad ones.
But them bad decisions got us in some trouble. But he learned and got out of that. So initially for me, like I said, I wasn't managing. It's not easy. It's not something that I can manage because it's a process. And but I did have to unlearn to not continue to blame him and bring things up. I had to unlearn to trust that he wouldn't do mistakes again, with not including me in decisions that affect me and the family, that, and then reconciling those issues and correcting it, and me in the background, like, okay, I can't bring it up again, like, because we've passed that and there's growth in it. I can't keep bringing it up because then we're going to keep going back to it and keep revisiting it, and with the hurts and the pains and the problems. And so it was a struggle for me to have to unlearn not to keep dwelling in the past. And like he said, he is a very forward thinking, futuristic, we're not talking about the things in the past, but bringing up the past for me was therapeutic because it helped me deal with the problem. Even though we passed that, it helped me harp on it so that I can try to, point it out again. This is where you made the error. This is where you did. And that's no good. That's very unhealthy, very unhealthy. But now it's just, being able to trust that those errors are not going to be made again, and not bringing up the hurt again. So
it's incredible because I can relate to that too in a very similar way. I didn't necessarily keep bringing it up, but boy, did I harbor it.
Yes.
Right. And in many ways, and this is what happens. And this is why I kind of said, when you're growing up together, you had them dumb days. I don't care who you are. You have dumb days, right? And you're making mistakes. And you got to be willing to lean into forgiveness, and you got to be willing to lean into grace because you're growing up, right? You have kids now that are in their 20s, and y'all looking at them like, boy, he's having some dumb days. Just like, everybody looks at that. And we once were them, and you were in your relationship at that point trying to navigate through. For me, it wasn't so much bringing it up, but I let it fester within because I knew bringing it up was going to take us back, and it was going to make us rehearse it, and it was going to make it be an issue. But I let it fester within. And when something came up that kind of bumped into that rock that was sitting in there,
that's it.
Yeah, it bumped into it. And then the next thing you know, it was like a minefield, and you blew up because I didn't deal with it. I didn't deal with my feelings. I just kind of pushed it down as it relates to, different choices, different mistakes, or different viewpoints. Because it's very interesting because Chuck and I, we can look at the situation and he looks at the learnings from it, what he learned from it. And I'm looking at it like that wasn't good, like that impacted us. But he's looking at it like we had this experience and we learned from it. And I'm looking at it like, yeah, we had this experience and we took a hit for it, And so we just had very different perspectives. And it's important to not push it down, but figure out how to navigate through, but then to also do what you're saying, Aisha, which is don't keep going back to it. Allow yourself to move on from it. Allow yourself to heal. So I can definitely
say one more thing with that too is I just saw someone comment that that's something that they're learning to do, and it's not easy to think forward and not harbor on those things because feelings are involved, and you go back to it. But I will say, when your spouse, your partner, shows that they're putting in the work so that mistake won't happen again, it corrects you also. They're getting, they're shifting, they're correcting, self-correcting, self-changing. You have to also put in the work to do it too. So the unlearning, like you said, that's in that's quoted, is the unlearning part of allowing them to show that they're trustworthy. And you have to change with that.
And it's also, I mean, it's all one of those things that often goes unsaid, but since I'm the mistake maker in this scenario.
No, you're not.
No. I'm saying in this scenario, I'm the person who's made the mistakes. I'm not, you've made mistakes, but that's not what as the mistake maker in this particular scenario, you constantly come across moments where you go, okay, this is where I made that mistake. Right. And you consciously, especially if you're working on it, you consciously make the decision to not make that mistake again. Right. We were having a conversation earlier about, making decisions and, going left or right. Right. Just where she's more of a person who kind of has to really think about, should I go left or should I go right? Where I'm the type where I come to and I was like, well, I'm gonna just go left and we're gonna see where it goes.
That stresses me out.
Right. But there comes the point, especially when you've made the mistake, you don't want to make the mistake again, and you don't want to be in a position where she has to continue to bring it up. That's where I went left. Right. So now I'm gonna go right. And you're constantly working on it. And then the idea of, so if the person who made the mistake is constantly working on trying to prevent it from reoccurring, and the person that mistake was, perpetrated against is working on reconciling that, it should make, in theory, it should make it a lot easier. But if I keep making the same mistake,
right, and if I keep bringing it up,
right, you kind of,
excellent point. Excellent. You actually helped me understand why Chuck focused on what he learned from it, because he's trying to apply the knowledge, right? Like you're saying, apply the knowledge forward. So I don't make that mistake again. I don't want to run into that trap. I don't want to deal with your attitude. That's basically what that means. Right. And so I can relate. That was very helpful for me. So thank you for taking time to explain that. Now, Aisha, you guys have an interesting work-life balance, and you guys have had it for a number of years, and it does require you to lean in heavily on trust. Tell us a little bit about that dynamic, and I think people will understand what I mean about putting pressure on trust.
Do you want him to go first?
Either of you. It doesn't matter.
Well, the dynamic is that my husband travels for work. He travels 99% of the time. He's gone Monday out of the house. He comes back Friday. I see my husband on the weekends. And initially that was extremely hard. Raising 3 kids in a household, and not being able to, have somebody help take the trash out, except for my son, but just, like it was me. It was like, and he hates when I say this, but it was like a single parent, but not because he's there on the weekends. So it was initially it was hard. It was me harboring anger, harboring resentment, jealousy, because I couldn't go anywhere, traveling, all of the emotions that someone would have when they don't understand what the other person is going through. And so I had to, and it took a while, it took a long time for me to take a step back. And what made me take a step back was, just not wanting my husband coming home, not wanting to come home. I want my husband to come home, and I want him to want to come home. So I had to take a step back and say, all right, well, is there anything that I can do different? And I read an article, and it popped up somewhere, and I read an article, and the article talked about, a husband who was traveling and eating Burger King every day. And I thought about that, and I'm like, he's not even eating the regular meal. He's not he's not eating a home cooked meal. He's eating on the road. He's, sleeping in a different hotel room, every week. And, he doesn't have family around him. He's by himself trying to navigate himself. Mm-hmm. So the trust thing came in where eventually we've created a system. Mm-hmm. So that system looks like he checks in every day. So now there's consistency, there's communication. He checks in between a certain period of time every single day. When he lands, he lets me know when he's landed. When he takes off, he lets me know when he takes off. When he's in a meeting and I'm trying to reach him, he knows that if I'm texting or if there's a certain code, not code, but if there's a reach out during the middle of the day, he knows to call me back within the hour. So there's systems in place. There's communications in place that won't allow for distrust. Mm-hmm. And if there's any discord within that, then there's like, oh, well, what's going on? But at that point, there's an emergency, there's an explanation for it. I think in our relationship, in our marriage, we also give each other our space. Mm-hmm. I allow him to be the leader at his job. I allow him to be the decision maker for his job and give him the space to be that, so that one, you can have your job and we can live the way we live. And two, it's too much energy put into it, asking where you at now, what you doing now, what's going on now. No, there's going to be a set time that we are going to do this during the week, mm-hmm. so that we know that there is a schedule put in place. Now on the weekends, we spend time with each other. Like that's our time to spend with each other. Mm-hmm. And we hang out, we go to dinner and whatever we do, it's our time together. But it's just that consistency and communication.
Yeah, that's really good. Latif, what would you add from your perspective on that dynamic that you guys are living with, really?
It's one of those things where I knew it was hard for her, right? Like just you would have to be completely oblivious to the circumstances to not realize that it was difficult, particularly when our youngest was born. So there was a lot of uncertainty and probably some guilt and reservations about the whole thing, to the point where, because what she didn't say is that initially when we moved and I started traveling, I was on the road 3 weeks at a time. Mm-hmm. Right. So I was on the road for 3 weeks, come home for a weekend, back on the road for 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. So even for me, that felt like a lot. Mm-hmm. So when Journey came along, at that point, I knew that there was a lot of stress there. It was causing tension on top of her being just having a baby, but having to deal with a newborn and then a teenager and almost a crazy preteen, to the point where it was like, all right, I can't keep doing this for us. Mm-hmm. Right. So a modification, I ended up leaving my job and mm-hmm. finding another job that it still had travel required, but I was home with a lot more regularity. And that helped ease some of that stress. And I was able to, at that point, maybe decompress some of that stress for her, mm-hmm. Just by being more present. And then again, just kind of in being willing to, or understanding that I need to be willing to find whatever helps make her comfortable. Mm-hmm. Because my job would consume, if I let it, and sometimes I do, but it'll consume 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, mm-hmm. Just because of the nature of the work. Mm-hmm. So it's having to be deliberate about taking her feelings, circumstances, into consideration, and then trying to make the necessary adjustments, whether it's changing a job or, calling at a different time, or, you know, making sure that time is well spent when together, to ease some of that, because it's more stressful to know that that's happening in the background. And then it makes it hard for you to be productive, or whether in work or in life, right? It creates stress, and that stress, you know, manifests itself in different ways, and it just makes everything harder. So if I can make things easier for her, which in turn helps make things easier for us, then, you know, so be it.
What I love in how each of you kind of shared is how polarizing it could be if you don't figure out how to come together, right? Because we are looking at two sides of that coin. And if she just only focuses on what she feels, what she's experiencing, you know, what's going on with her, and at the same time, with an assumption that, well, he is not here, and so he's getting to travel and he's getting to be away, not realizing that you had your own perspective that you were dealing with on this side, saying, boy, I feel guilty and I hate leaving, you know. So it's almost like those accusations and assumptions come into place when you don't take time to try to understand what's going on with the other person, right? And you're assuming I got the short end of the stick and he's living the life. And she's, you know, you're assuming I got the short end of the stick, and you realize she's pressure packed, but at the same time, you're living in a way that's compromised too, right? You're on the road, you're not having family time and those things. And I think what makes a difference, and I'd love to hear your perspective, is understanding each side, right? And being willing to prioritize the other person. So Aisha prioritizing when he comes home, I want him to come home. I want him to want to be here. I want him to want to experience family time. So how does that look? How do I prepare? How do I make sure that I don't have no noise in the way, so that the time we do have, we can make the best of it? And then Latif on his side, trying to figure out how to navigate it to make things easier. What adjustments and shifts do I need to make? And I think when you make that intentional effort to consider the other side, that's when you can eliminate the discord. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on what intentionalities have to happen. You talked about like your cadence and your calls and those types of things, but it's almost like you have to make yourself think of the other person.
So that's exactly what it is. And I have, wrote it down. It's in your thought process. Mm-hmm. And every day, every moment, you're dealing with life, because you with the kids, and we gotta cook, and I gotta clean, and I gotta work. I have a job too. So yes, I'm stressed, but daily you have to remind yourself it's not his fault. Mm-hmm. He's trying to provide, and he's trying to bring, make sure that the family is taken care of. And this is our norm. This is our norm. Mm-hmm. And this is how it's going to get done. So you have to every day, not cuss him out in your head mm-hmm. when something breaks, mm-hmm. when the kids are screaming and then somebody's dropping and spilling something. He ain't there. It ain't his fault.
I didn't push the panic button.
You didn't put, so I used to call it the panic button. I will call him, be like, you push the panic button. And he's like, what are you talking about? You remember the Staples button, and you push it. Like, that was easy. No, it was like the panic button. Mm-hmm. And so, it's really just mentally, you have to mentally challenge yourself against those thoughts. Your mind is where it's all at, because your body follows and your thoughts follow. So you have to really challenge that. And it's an exercise. It's not natural, because we want to fight, initially our bodies, you want to tense up, you want to argue, you want to have an argument, you want to fight. But you have to intentionally, think about how would me responding that way help this situation? He's not even here. Mm-hmm. He's not even here to defend himself over whatever argument you have in your head. Mm-hmm. You
won though. I won that.
I know. I ain't even here. Who you arguing with? So yeah, I know everybody's situation isn't this, and I know people, work at their homes, but if you think about it, it's even when people are working and they come home every night, and it's making house a home and thinking of the other person and thinking of, what they're dealing with at their job every day, and having to come home to you have an attitude for whatever reason that they weren't even there for. So
I think part of it too, and you can let me know if you agree, is taking time to learn the other person, right? And not displacing myself on that person and assuming that they are like me, going to respond like me, and possibly do things like me. Because a lot of times we oftentimes see people as we are, as opposed to as they are. And so I think taking time to learn one another, right? And especially in your case, you have FaceTime now. We have come a long way. We went from payphone to FaceTime. Look at that. But you have you have FaceTime now. But at one point in time in this process, you probably had to listen to the tone of her voice, right? You probably had to listen to some phrases she was saying to try to key in on, okay, something ain't right here, as opposed to now you can kind of see it because you can see her face. And part of that is learning her, right?
She never hit it. She never hit it. There was when that call came in, it was like, oh, okay, this is going to be one of those.
Yeah.
So right, all right.
Oh, there's definitely tone.
Right, yeah. So it's like, all right, you take your lashing. Sometimes you go, listen, I'll try to fix it when I get back, or just don't let the place burn down. But you're absolutely right about just trying to be able to understand where the other person's coming from, right? Mm-hmm. And part of it is almost like trying not to take it personally.
Yeah.
Right? That she's less mad at me and more mad at the circumstances or the situation. Mm-hmm. Right? Because if you say, because you couldn't say, I'm mad that you're working hard every day.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, really? You sound crazy. No, it's more about you're working hard every day, but you're not here.
Yeah.
Right. And that causes this to happen, or it causes that to happen, or it makes me feel this way when those things try to happen. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was like, and it's not an easy thing, because it can feel like a personal attack, right? Like, what else? What do you want from me? Or what else am I supposed to do? But trying to be understanding or considerate of, even though that is the way it may be coming across, that's not what she actually is feeling or even believes. Mm-hmm. Right. And then just trying to find that middle ground. And if there are steps that need to be made to try to make it better, or show that it can be better, or show that you even want it to be better, then that helps as well.
Yeah. And figuring out that compromise, I love the rhythm that you guys have created, and it's one that works for you, and it's one that helps you feel good, right? It helps you feel good to know I'm going to hear from him at this time. He's going to respond to me when I text. I'm going to I love that you've been able to figure out that type of rhythm with one another. And some people may assume that that's doing too much, that they don't want to make the compromise, and they don't want to be accountable, and they don't want to really show up in a way that is for that other person. Like we have been talking about, how did you navigate to that, right? How did you navigate to, I am willing to do this because it's important to him, or I am willing to do this because it's important to her, because we can be so self-seeking sometimes.
Absolutely. Honestly, it probably wouldn't have worked out if he wasn't responding to it. So I can put in all the work and I can do so much, but if the other person isn't giving anything back to you and isn't responding to you being able to adjust yourself, then it's for what? Like, you give up easily. You just you put it all out there on the table, and then it's like, for what? But he responded to that. I saw the change in him and his not even excitement, because he's just not an excitement person when it comes to that type of stuff, but just, babe, what do you want to do this weekend? Or, like, there was a change in him wanting to come home, right? And being okay with it and comfortable with it. It wasn't a fear coming home. It wasn't like, you all right this weekend? You okay this week? It was more of, okay, I'm putting in the work and I'm trying, and then now he's adjusting himself to match my energy that I'm putting out there. But if that wasn't happening, and if I didn't see an adjustment in him when I was trying to adjust and I was trying to change, I can't say that we would be here. That I can't say that, because I can't put one person, he can't put all the work in and then not see me doing, changing and adjusting.
Yeah. And I think it's important to make sure that when effort is being put forth, that there is a response to that acknowledges it, supports it, as it is an indication of an attempt to change, right? It is an indication of an attempt to bond. And, when you see that occurring, that is acknowledging the fact that you did make a choice to bring me into your life, right? You did make a choice to establish family. You did make a choice to make marriage happen between us. And you owe that to this process, right? To at least try to respond. When we are stuck on the selfishness that keeps that connectivity from occurring, you are absolutely right. That is when the demise begins. I mentioned the other night, when you go and you read 1 Corinthians 13 and you really read what love is about. I mean, if you really sit down and read what love is about, first of all, it is an action, and it is unselfish, and it's not about you at all. It is extremely sacrificial, extremely grace-giving, and that is how we're supposed to show up. And so when that attempt is made, I hope that the person on the other side makes themselves available to respond to that. Because if you don't, you're right. You're beginning the brick lane of a wall that ultimately is going to cause separation and cause disconnection in the relationship. So that's really good. So let me keep moving, because I could talk to y'all all night. So Latif, let me ask you this. On the outside looking in, you make it look easy, but as you reflect, what advice would you give to a husband who may be struggling in their marriage?
I don't believe it's any different than anything else that you want or that you work towards, right? That, what's the saying, anything worth having isn't easy. That, there's going to be, you're going to have the peaks and the valleys, right? And you want to be able to kind of ride through them all. And, you want to get out of those valleys as quickly as you can, and you want to stay on those peaks for as long as you can. But inevitably, it's life. Things are going to happen. You're going to run into situations. You're going to have to deal with, different circumstances, and just being in a position to understand that you're going to have to want to work through them. Right. It's about want to.
Yeah.
I think it's safe to say, this could have ended many times a long time ago, right? But there had to have been, whether we verbalized it or not, there had to have been a want to kind of work through it. And as long as you kind of keep that in perspective, I think that really kind of helps you, because you're at that point, then you'll be able to adjust. But to your point about what you were just saying a minute ago, it has to be reciprocated, right? It has to be reciprocated, because there could be a situation, and I'm trying, like I may be trying, or you may be trying, but if it's not the way it's not the way I want you to try. You know what I'm saying? Well, as opposed to shutting down because the effort isn't the effort that you would want, talk about it. Here's what I need.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm looking for. And I would say from a man's perspective, that probably requires a little bit more vulnerability, you know, to say this is what I'm looking for, or this is what I need. I know that's true for me. I hate to generalize, but I know that's true for me. But if you're willing to put yourself in that space, because I don't know if you can be any more vulnerable than in a marriage.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. And if you're trying to put that wall up and not be, that makes it a lot more difficult.
Yeah, that's really, really good. Absolutely. All right, Aisha, if there's a wife listening, or someone here in their love relationship that they're committed to, but they're struggling, what advice would you give to her?
Yeah, it was hard to answer. It's hard to answer that one, because everybody's struggle is different, you know? And I can only speak to my experience and the struggles that I had in my own marriage. And if that helps somebody, God bless them. I pray that it does. But what the advice that I would give is allowing your husband to be who he is going to be. And when I say that is, he has a purpose, and he has a calling, and he has a drive for his life. And that's not saying that you have to sacrifice who you are. That's not saying that you have to, you know, be the only one that has dreams and aspirations. Supporting your husband in his goals and his dreams, because ultimately it's a good thing, because you benefit from it. You know, you both benefit from both of you guys achieving your goals. But you have to be individuals. But the Bible does tell us we come, you know, we cleave, we come to become one. And that is true. But then you still are. I'm still Aisha, and I still have my dreams, and I still have my goals, and I still have my desires. But championing your husband and being his cheerleader in every area, and not being like, where you going now? What you doing now? Where you going? Because that's where that trust comes in. You know, he doesn't need a mother. He doesn't need me to be like, okay, well, you can't go left, you got to go right. I have to be able to trust that he's going to make a right decision, because he loves his family, and I have to give him that space for that. Now, I'm here to help to get him where he needs to go, because I am his helpmate, but I am not supposed to give him the answer. So yeah, I think it's giving you your space to be the man that you are supposed to be, to fulfill your purpose, to be the head of the household, which I know a lot of people struggle with that. I struggle hard with that. That is not easy. But when they show that they can be the head of the household, you got to allow that to happen. Because that's what the Bible says. And that's how things, you know, it flows.
That's good. That's good. That's good. You guys have been awesome. Thank you so much for joining. Now, around these parts, I always like to challenge everyone to build a life they love without apology. And I always close out with my life, love, and happiness questions. And it's an attempt to tap into wisdom. I believe that if we can get wisdom, it can help us make better choices and decisions, and help to navigate us a little better as we go forward. So, Aisha, when you think about your life wisdom, what would you tell your younger self about life if you could?
That it's going to work out. That it's going to be okay. And that it's bigger and better than what you thought it was. Because as a young adult or a child or what have you, your vision or your scope is so limited because that's the world, it's so small. It's your family and it's your immediate friends. But when you get older, you get exposure, you see the world, you see things, and you didn't know that this was possible. So it's bigger and better than what you could have imagined.
That's good. What about you, Latif? What would you tell your younger self about life if you could?
That it's all building towards something, right? That these every moment in your life isn't happening in a vacuum, right? That it's all building towards something, and that you have the ability, good or bad, right, up or down, to put those pieces where you want them to be, right? Nobody's building that life for you. You're building it, so that kind of be willing to go through it, but also kind of take control of it, if that makes sense, because it's your puzzle. Nobody can tell you where to put your pieces. You're putting that puzzle and making that picture what you want it to be. So as long as you just kind of keep that in focus, you'll be all right.
Embrace your and go is what I like to say. All right. What's your love wisdom? What would you tell your younger self about love if you could, Latif?
It's a process. It's definitely a process. And it's not what you thought it would be. It's what you make it.
Yeah.
And it's who you make it with. Right? That love is going to be whatever the other person on the other side of that love receiving yours and giving you theirs will make it. Right? So, don't go into it with a preconceived notion of what it's supposed to be, because chances are it's not going to be that.
Yeah.
That's good. Real good. Aisha, what about you? Your love wisdom. What would you tell your younger self about love if you could?
Yeah, like, you grow up with the 1 Corinthians, the scripture we talked about, that gives an entire definition of what love is. And, you just have to surround yourself with people who hold those attributes, and that people who actually, maybe they don't even know, but maybe, they won't even know that they are encompassing all of the things that the Bible tells us what love is. But surround yourself with those type of people. That that know what love is, that have and can just show without saying it, and my husband does that all the time.
It's beautiful.
So many nuggets of love that you don't even have to say it. It's just through actions.
That's beautiful. And then finally, your happiness wisdom. What would you tell your younger self about happiness if you could, Aisha?
So I don't like using happiness all the time. I look at it as it's joy to me, because joy is long lasting. Happiness is fleeting. And so I guess that's why we named our baby Joy. So
I'm learning that.
That's interesting, right?
Oh, okay. Look at that.
Well, no, so I pursue joy. I don't pursue happiness. I pursue joy. And, I would tell my younger self to continue to be on the journey for joy.
Oh, look at you bringing the girls' names into that whole phrase. All right, Latif, what about you? Happiness wisdom. What would you tell your younger self about happiness if you could?
You deserve it. Deserve to be happy, but you kind of have to pursue it, right? You have to, it's not going to come to you. You kind of have to find those things that make you happy, and it'll change as you change, right? As you grow the things that, the point of like what made you happy at 18 is not going to may not make you happy at 28, and may not make you happy at 38. And probably in some circles, it probably shouldn't. Right? Like I probably shouldn't be happy at 44 with the things that I was happy at 24. Like I'm probably missing something.
Yeah.
Right. So embrace that change and that growth too, because everything that encompasses your life probably changes with it. So
it's good. That's good. Well, I just love you guys and so appreciate you being here. There's a number of comments in the chat. Your family is having a good time. There's a good acknowledgement saying, that's my son. They are enjoying you showing up for you tonight. Very inspiring couple. Proud of both of you. I think that just speaks to the light that you guys shine. So thank you so much for being here. And I want to tell you that success looks so good on you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Have a good night. And to everyone who has been with us all week, I do want to just say thank you for being a part of Couples Love Week. I also want to let you know that these episodes will play back on my podcast, Life, Love, and the Pursuit of Happiness. So keep your eyes peeled for the notification when you can hear these great nuggets of wisdom, when you have powerhouse feedback and wisdom and insight like that we receive tonight and all week long. Those are great things to play back to help you, one, to know that you're not alone and that there are couples who are standing as examples of good love. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of Couples Love Week. And I just sign off and say thanks, and good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Well, that's it, beautiful. Thank you for tuning in. Don't ever forget that you are truly blessed with life, love, and all the happiness your heart can hold. Be relentless in building a life you love without apology. I'm Denise Taylor, and you can always find me in our free Facebook community. It's Embrace Your Power, easy to find. Now be sure to rate and review this podcast and share it with a friend. And make sure you subscribe so that we can stay connected each week. And remember, God has not given us a spirit of fear. He gave us power. So be sure to always embrace your power and go.